I am going to build an authentication service from scratch. Almost every app there uses some form of authentication. Most of the time, developers choose auth service like Firebase, Auth0, and there are a couple others as well. It is simple to build a basic auth service that can be repurposed for various use cases. I'm going to show you exactly how to build it from scratch. Hello everyone, I am Saurav and you are watching Screens. And today I'm going to build a simple auth service with all JavaScript stack using Node Express and Mongo. I'm going to code everything from scratch to finish. By the end of this video, we will have a working auth service which you can start using for your projects. I have been using it for demo projects for other videos on this channel. So enough said, let's fire up that IDE and write some code. So we'll create a folder called auth service. Let's cd into that folder and let's do npm init. Okay, now I'll open it in VS Code. Okay, so we now have a packet.json. Now let's go ahead and create a file called index.js. Okay, now I'll open the terminal here. So I'll open the integrated terminal and start installing some packages. So first package we're going to install is Express. So let's do that. And install. So now let's check the package.json. We have a dependency of Express now. I'll make another file called express.js first. Okay, let's modify the express.js. So we'll require Express. And then we'll declare app and then I'll also use a couple of dependencies which will make the Express configuration easy. The first one is consign. Okay, so let's go ahead and install that as well. So basically consign will, I'll show you what consign is. Consign will basically auto load our scripts and we can easily configure our routes and everything else. So let's import that and let's see how we're going to use it. So I'm going to do npm install. Now let's declare consign as well. So we'll install another package called body parser, which we need to read the body parameters. So let's go ahead and install that as well. So we'll do npm install. Body parser. Good. Let's go ahead and declare that. And now we are going to use body parser as a middleware. Sorry, body parser dot JSON. Okay, now I'm going to mount all the routes into the app. So for that, we can use consign dot include and we can, so basically what I can do here is like I'll create a folder for routes, and basically we can say that mount routes into the app. Okay, now let's handle some edge cases. So first we'll handle the four error cases where resource is not found. So we are going to create a middleware. Okay, so it will be request, response, and the next. Okay, and then let error, we're going to create an error object with new error and set the error message as resource not found. Okay, and then we are going to set the status of the error as 404, and then we are going to call next and pass this error. So now let's handle the error cases. So basically these are the error cases, and if we find any error, we are going to write a middleware which will catch those errors and send a final response. So let's create a middleware function, and the first parameter will be the error itself, then the request, response, and next. Okay, and then we are going to say let status, and we are going to set status from the error, or we are going to set it as 500, and then we are also going to create a message, create an error object, and let's call it message e.message, and then we are going to check if get, we are going to get the environment, and if the environment is production, we are on our console log the error, and then we are going to send a response with status equal, and we'll set the status as status, and we are going to append the error as JSON, and we are gonna handle it differently for the development purposes. So we're gonna set error dot message is equal to status and we are gonna append it with the error object, and then we are gonna set the response as status, and then we are gonna send e.getStack. Okay, and now we're gonna export it. Module.exports, call a function, okay, and we're gonna return Express app. And now let's open the index.js, and we will get an Express constant and require it from the file which we created. And then we are gonna say app equal to express. And now we are gonna create an app and start listening at port 3000. Sorry. And we're gonna create a function here, and then we are gonna console log chat express is running on port 3000. Okay, and this is how we bootstrap our Express app. And we gonna install one more package to run the node to run the index.js. So we are going to use node daemon. So, and we'll install it as a dev dependency. So we're gonna install it as dev dependency, and the package is node daemon. Basically, it will watch for the changes and rerun the index.js file. So let's install that. And then if we can see in package.json, it will appear as a dev dependency here since we installed it as a dev dependency. And we are gonna create a script for dev. Let's create the dev script. So we are gonna use node daemon, and we're gonna run index.js. Let's format it. Okay, and we can use this using npm run dev. So now you can see that we have the node server running on port 3000. Now, in order to make API calls, I'm going to use another extension for VS Code, which is REST client. I'm going to quickly show you that. So this is the REST client which I'm using. So basically, using this, we can make API calls directly from VS Code. So for that, I'll create a file called REST api.rest. Okay, and in the api.rest, I have written this get and the URL, and now you can see that I have a send request on top. So this is due to the extension which I have installed, and if you press it, it will make an API call. So now you can see that when I make an API call, I get an error saying resource not found. Okay, so basically now we have bootstrapped our Express server. Now let's start creating the routes for authentication. So I'm going to create a new file, auth.js here. Okay, and in this route.js, basically we are going to create 3 endpoints, 3 routes, which is login, sign up, and then I'm also going to create another endpoint to fetch the current user details. Okay, and I'll call it /me. So basically we'll have 3 APIs called login, /sign up, and /me. Okay, but to get the data, what we're going to do is first bring in Mongoose, and let's connect to our MongoDB server. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in Mongoose to connect to the MongoDB server. So let's stop this server and bring in Mongoose. Npm install Mongoose. Okay, now we are going to use Mongoose to connect to a MongoDB server. So basically, we are going to use some URL here, to connect to a MongoDB server. I'm not going to show you that. You can get a MongoDB instance from either locally install the MongoDB instance on your system, or you can use any of the hosted services. And we are going to use new parser, and we're going to use it as true, and then use unified topology as true as well. Okay, I'm going to paste it. So let's check if everything is working fine. Now we can see that we are not getting an error. So I think we have connected successfully to the MongoDB server. So let's go ahead and now start creating our models. So we'll create a folder called models on the root directory, and then I'm gonna create a file called user.js, and in the user.js we're gonna require mongoose. Okay, and then we are gonna create schema from mongoose.schema, and then we are gonna create user schema, and we are gonna do new schema, and then we are going to define the schema of the user. So let's go ahead and do that. First of all, I'm not sure why this is happening. I'll using two spaces too. Okay, and the first one is username. Okay, and we are gonna use type as string. So I'm going to say that username is a type of string, and it is required, so it will be true. So basically it will be always required. Let's create email, and use type as string here as well. And then I'm going to make it required true once again. Sorry, so basically this is okay, and then we are going to have a password field. Basically this is the hashed password though, as password, and then we're gonna say type, and this will be also a string, and required is true for this as well. And then we have a field called created at, and then let's call it type as date, and let's default this to date dot now. Okay, so I think we are done with our user schema. Let's export it. Order.exports equal to mongoose dot model, and we are going to pass user, and then we are gonna pass user schema. Okay, now we have our user model. let's go ahead and create a user repository. So basically what I'll do is I'll create a repository which will save the user to the database and fetch user from the database. Okay, and let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to create a folder called repository. And then let's call user repository. Yes. Okay, and we're gonna do constant mongoose require this. Okay, and we are gonna create a class called user repository. And then we are gonna create a constructor. And let's create a save function, and let's call a callback here, also callback, and then say user dot save, and this will be a function, and basically it may have error. So while saving we might have error, so we are call back and pass the may have error there. Okay, let's change this again. Okay, now we are done with the save user function. Now let's go ahead and create user by ID. So basically we are going to find user by ID, and then there will be a callback, and then now we are going to call mongoose dot, we're going to call mongoose dot model, and then we're going to use user, and then we're gonna do find one. So basically we're gonna find email, and then we're gonna again pass the callback here. So we're gonna say user dot find by ID, and then we're gonna pass ID, and then we're gonna pass callback, and then again we're gonna create a function called user by email. So basically we're gonna find user by email, then we are going to again for mongoose dot model, we're gonna use user model, and we're gonna do find one, and then we are going to pass the email, and then we are going to pass the callback here. So basically I'm going to, while registration, I'm going to use this save, and when I'm finding a user by the ID, I'm going to use this, and then while checking if the email already exists or not, I am going to use this user by email and get a user by email and check if the email exists. We are going to throw an error message, or else we're going to create the user. Okay, now let's create a controller. So yeah, I'm going to create a folder called controller. And let's create a file called auth controller. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a controller for authentication, and for that I'm going, and first we need the user controller here, sorry, user repository here. Okay, and then I'll require repository slash user repository, and we're gonna need user model as well. So sorry, require slash models slash user. Okay, and so basically before for sign up, and for sign up, what we are going to do is when we are getting the password, we're going to encrypt it and then store it in our database. And when we are logging in, we are going to again encrypt the password and match with the stored password. And if it is a success, we are going to return a successful token, and we are going to use a JWT token for this. So I'm going to import two packages here, one for encrypting and the other one for, so the first one is called bcrypt.js, and the second one for JSON web tokens, we are going to call JSON web tokens, sorry, JSON web token. Okay, so now we have both our packages installed, so I'm going to use it here. So let's use bcrypt. Okay, I'm going to require it from bcrypt.js, and the second one is JWT. I'm going to require it from JSON web token. And I'm also going to use a validator for it, if to throw error messages and all. So let's go ahead and install that as well. So I'm going to install Express validator. Okay, and let's go ahead and get that. So basically we are going to use check and validate the result, and we're going to require it from Express validator. Okay, and then we're going to create a repository, and let's call it new user repository. Let's create a class called auth controller. Okay, and we'll create an empty constructor first. And let's first create a function called check login. So basically I'm just going to validate if the email and password is valid or not. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's do check. Okay, let me change this to spaces to So the first check is for email, and the message is please check, please enter a valid email, enter a valid email, and the check is email. So basically we're going to check email and validate it. And the second check is for the password, and the password, and the error message should be please enter valid password. So basically if it does not match the criteria, which is length, okay, if the length is we're gonna call it minimum of 6. So if the length is less than 6, we're gonna throw this error up front. So let's do login. Let's create a function called do login. We're gonna pass request response, and then we are create errors, and then we're gonna validate result, and the request. Okay, and then if we have errors, so we're gonna say that if the error is empty, result. Okay, sorry, so this is basically validation result, validation result, and we're gonna say if error. So if it is empty, so basically if there are no errors, we're gonna return a response at status, and we're gonna send 422. So basically if the errors are not empty, we're gonna set it, we're gonna send 422 with errors. Error is dot array. Okay, and then if everything is valid, let's go ahead and do the actual login. So let's go ahead and deconstruct email, and password from the body. So we are expecting email and password from the body for login. Let's create a try catch block. Okay, and let's do repo, and I'm going to find the user by email first. User by email. Okay, and we are going to pass email. So what I'm going to do is fetch the user with the email and try to match the password. So, and then we'll provide the callback function, and the first parameter is error and the second one is the user itself. So if there are errors, let's throw that error, and if we do not find a user. Let's throw an 400 error. Return rest dot status. Let's call it 400 dot JSON, and the message is user does not exist. Not exist. Okay, so we have handled 2 error cases first upfront. Let's now, if everything is successful, what we'll do is we'll compare the password which we received from the body with the user password. Okay, and we gonna so basically then we are going to call this function. So if we have error, so in the cases where it does not match, let's throw the error. So if there are cases like if some error occurs, we're gonna throw it, and if there is no match, is match. So if does not matches, what we are going to do is we are going to return response with status code 400. Okay, and let's put a error message there. So message is incorrect password. Okay, and if there everything is fine, what we are going to do is let's create a payload with user ID. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this payload and then use this payload for creating the JWT token. So let's have a user ID in there. So I'll put the user ID in the token. So this is the payload. Let's use the JSON web token JWT to sign it. So let's do a sign on this, and basically what we are going to do is we will sign the payload, and you can use a random string here, random string. So basically this is your salt here. Okay, and then you can do expiry. So let's call it expires in, and what we're gonna do is let's expire it in certain amount of time. So I'm going to use a small number here. Okay, so I can, so let's use 36,000 here. Okay, 3600 here, and then we'll call a function with error and token. So if everything works fine, we get a token, and that token, so let's handle the error case first. If there is error, let's throw the error, and if it is success. Let's set the status to 200, and then the JSON body will contain the token. Okay, cool. And let's catch the errors. So we'll log the error first, and then we'll send the response as 500. Let's do 500. And we'll set the JSON body to message as server error. Okay, so what we have done here is basically first check for the validation, then we fetch the user by the email. If there are errors, we are throwing errors, and if the user does not exist, we throw this 400 with and user does not exist. And then if everything is fine, we start comparing the password which we have, the encrypted password which we have stored with the password which we get from the body. So this is from the body, this is from the database. And then if there is a match, we create this payload, and then using JWT we sign that payload and set it as a response. Okay, so let's so I think basically this is how we create the login. So I'm going to quickly create the route for it as well. So let's create the route for it. So I'm going to create the so I've created auth.js in the routes folder. Let's import the auth controller here. Let's require the auth controller from controllers/auth controller. Okay, and let's have a controller here. And let's create the auth controller object, and let's export all the routes. So be a function, take the app, okay, spaces to, okay, and then we're gonna do app post. The first and the endpoint we are going to use is login, and we're going to do controller dot, okay, we are going to use check login for validation, and then I'm going to use controller dot do login for login in. Okay, so I'm going to go to this API.rest. Okay, and I think I have already created a username password there. So what I'm going to do here is, let's paste this. So basically I've already created this username in my database with this password. Let's try to do a login. Okay, let's do a Azure. Now I'm getting a send request here. Okay, so the service is not running. So I'm going to start the server. Oh, holy moly, I'm getting some errors here. User repository is not a constructor. Okay, so let me check the user repository. Repository. So I have misspelled it here. Let's correct it. Okay, let me check if everything is fine still. Repo. Okay, so basically I have got to export things here, so it will be model.exports is equal to user repository. Okay, now we have the same problem in the auth controller. Let's go ahead and export that. That exports. We are going to do it like this. Auth controller. Okay, now I think everything should be fine. Let's go ahead and make a request. So now you can see that we get our token back. So basically this is the JWT token, okay, which we created here in the auth controller. We signed this payload. So basically if we decrypt it, we'll get the user ID. I want to take a second to say that if you like these kind of videos, please feel free to check out my other content. If that helps you, subscribe to the channel, comment and like the video. It keeps motivating me. Okay, so let's go ahead and create so let's go ahead and create a sign up flow as well. Let's do sign up, and let's request response, and then let's create errors. Again, we'll do validation result with request, and if we have errors, if it is empty, we're gonna move forward. If it is not empty, what we're gonna do is return response with status 422, and we're gonna do JSON error is equal to error shit errors dot array. Okay, and then let's deconstruct username, email, and password from the request body. Okay, and then we're gonna use the user repository, and we are going to find user by email, and if we find the user with existing email, we're gonna throw error. So let's create a function. Let's pass error and then user. We'll console log the error. And if we have a user, we're gonna say that this user already exists. So let's return a response with status 400, and then set the JSON body message user already exists. Okay, somewhere it is crashing. This is like this. Now if everything is fine, what you are going to do is create a variable called user, and then we are going to create a new user using the username, email, and password. Okay, and let's let's encrypt the password using bcrypt. So I'm going to do bcrypt.gen salt. Basically, this is the number of rounds we want to do the encryption. So I'm using 10. Error. So if we have error, we're gonna throw it. So if we are going to have error, we'll console log that error. Error dot message, and we're gonna send the status as 500. Error in saving. If everything works fine, we're gonna hash the password using the salt and this will contain error and the hashed password. So if we have error, we'll again console log error dot message, and then again set the status to 500 and send message error in saving. And if everything is fine, we're gonna set user dot password equal to the hash of the equal to the hash. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna save that using the user repository repo that save, and we are going to call the user, pass the user and the callback function error and saved user. So basically, if we have error, we're gonna do the same thing, control log error dot message, and then set the response status to 500 and send error in saving. And if everything is saved, what I'll do is I'll create a, so we need to create the token now. So when a user successfully signs up, he gets the response, the token in the response as well. So what we're gonna do is let's repeat the same step. Let's create the payload and the payload will be user.id. Okay, and then we gonna use JWT dot sign, and we are going to sign the payload, and we again use the same random string. So this thing can be anything which you chose. Okay, and then you're gonna set the expiry in the same fashion. It will be expires in the set date as 3600. Okay, and then there will be, and then the callback function will take error token. Okay, and if there are errors, again we are gonna console log it with error.message. And we're gonna do a response.status equal to 500 and then send. And we're gonna send the same message, error in saving. And if everything is successful, we're gonna send status as 200, and we're gonna use the JSON to pass the token. Okay, so now we have our do sign up thing as well. So let's go ahead and hook it up. So this will be also a post. Let's do sign up, and then we want to use controller dot check sign up. Did we create check sign up? Let me check first. Okay, we need to create check sign up also here. So let's quickly do that. Check sign up. Yeah. So let's start the checks. We're gonna check user name, and the error message will be please enter a valid username. And we're gonna put not is empty. Okay, and next check we're gonna and rest of the check we're gonna copy paste from here. Okay, so now we have to check sign up also, and we want to do controller dot to sign up. Okay, let's go ahead and use the rest API.rest file. Okay, so I'm gonna copy paste the signature here for sign up. Okay, so this is already a user which I have already created. So if I send the the same user email. I'll just get the user already exists. Let's try to change one word here. So hopefully this will create the user and send us the token in response. So this has gone ahead and created a user and send us the token in response. So our do sign up is also working. Let's go and create one more endpoint to get the user details of the logged in user. So for that, the endpoint will be like /me. So what we're going to do is get the user ID from the token. Okay. And for that, I'm going to create a middleware first. So let me create a folder called middlewares. Okay. So I'll create a folder called middlewares, and then I'll just call and create a file called auth.js. Okay, and in auth.js middleware, what I'm going to do, so I'm going to decrypt the user and pass it forward. So let's import JWT here. Wire JSON web token, and then what we're gonna do, module.exploits. Yeah, we're gonna create a function request response and next. Okay, let's get the token. So we are going to get the token from header. So whenever you're making a response request, you're gonna send the token in the header called token. So, and if token is not present, we're gonna return response.status 401, and then we're gonna set the message as message auth. Okay, and if everything is fine, let's so change the spaces to okay, and then let's create a constant. So this will be the decoded token. Verify. We're gonna verify the token with the random string. Okay, and then we're gonna decoded user, and then we're going to add the decoded user to the request and call next. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I got the token from the header, I decoded it, and then added it to the request and called the next. And let's do some error handling. If we hit an error, we'll console log it. Okay, and then we're gonna do status 500 and send. We're gonna send message Go to invalid token. Okay. Now let's put this middleware for all the authenticated API calls. So I'm going to create a So basically, I'm going to create a controller. In the auth controller, let's go ahead and create do get me. So basically, it will get /me request response, and let's put it in a try catch. Okay. Repo dot user by ID. Okay. Now the request dot user dot ID. So this user dot ID I'm getting from the middleware which we created just a while back, and contain error user. Okay, and if we have error, let's throw error. Okay, and let's get user, and I'm going to create user without password. So I'm going to fetch the user and remove the hashed password from it. Created at, and it will be user dot created at, and I'm going to pass on the ID. It will be user dot underscore ID. User name will be user dot username, and email will be user dot email. Oh, I misspelled this email, and then we're gonna send response that status 200.json .json, and I'm going to set user without password, and I'm going to send back the user without the password. Okay, and if we have error, we'll console log it, and then we're going to use res send message error in fetching user. Okay, and now let's create the route. So here I'll create an endpoint called app.get, and it will be /me, and I'm going to use this middleware which I created. So let's import it. Auth, let's require it from middleware. Middleware /auth. So I'm going to use to get me here. Okay, so let's try this API. Okay, we're going to remove this. Okay, and let's get the token first. So I'll use this to log in and get the token. I got the token. Okay, and I'm going to use this token, and now we get the user from that token. So when we hit this API, what is happening is we are using this. So in the routes, we are hitting this, and we are using this middleware here, and this middleware is getting the token from the header, and it is decoding it and putting the user in the request. And when we call this function do get me, this request will contain that user. So this user ID is put in by that middleware. Okay, so now we have all these 4 APIs working. We created three APIs, one for login, the other one for sign up, and the other one I showed you to demonstrate how you would get the user ID from the token for all the to validate the authenticated calls. So if you have any restricted resource, you can decrypt the token and match the user ID. With that out of the way, you can start building great apps using this auth service. I will leave a GitHub link in the description below. Feel free to clone it and play around with it. If you have any queries or thoughts on this video, do let me know in the comment section. We'll be happy to help you. See you in the next video.